from Dublin. And then on Wednesday night, I went to Kells.
Oh yes, I heard about that.
Yes, and I stayed with Mari
Yeah.
from until Sunday they arrived.
Yes.
And they came to Kells with the car, thank God.
Yes.
So we've been traveling with their car. And so they spent the night and got to meet the family at Kells.
Yes.
But it was just lovely because Mari is so happy.
You know,
Every day she has visitors.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
And so I got to meet all these lovely people.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
I don't know her that well. You know, we talk on the phone and we've met sadly at funerals maybe. I think she was here once. But and I can't remember her family. Kelly. No, that was the last time I met her.
She's the Carrie. She's the Carrie. Is that
Kelly and Kelly and Deirdre. She calls her Deirdre. Yes.
Yeah, I met Kelly and Deirdre and Hillary.
Hillary. Yes.
The daughter who lives in Manchester I did meet.
Yes.
But Mari was a Carrie. And her brother came.
Oh, I see.
Adrian Carey and her sister. So I met her side, but not the O'Byrne side.
Yes, yes.
And we think from our research, we know that Grandpa George and Uncle Patrick were that great, of course, Grandpa Cornelius and grandmother Mary had two sons, George and Patrick, and when they were christened, they lived in Mantua.
Yeah.
And so that's where I want to go through Mantua and see if I can pay respects.
Yeah.
But there's several gravesites, so we don't know for sure. We're just gonna try.
Yeah. I know. I can't know who this. What's she again? Thomas, Patrick, and Cornelius, is it? I never heard of them. But my grandfather, who was Martin Byrne.
Can we tape our conversation? Do you mind?
Not at all.
We would love to do that for family history.
We can.
So just wait and we'll tape it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just wait for
Because this is very important.
Yeah, this would be a good record.
I'll make probably lots of mistakes.
No,
it's okay.
because the whole thing
Actually,
is
let me
the
set it up.
family
Already,
intersection.
though.
We've already found, Kelly and I have already found, she has grandparents in Mantua as well.
Oh, right.
So very close.
Yeah.
So we're trying to see the intersection.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, whenever.
It's ready.
We want
I'd like to establish first, like, kind of where my grandfather's.
Sure.
I know he had Michael O'Byrne. That was his son. We say now. That's the member of the family that we heard of in America.
Yeah.
And he was in 2021 Coyle Street, Brooklyn, New York. I have his last letter to me there.
Oh.
That's so cool.
And I have photos of Michael and his wife and their family. So now I first of all, to establish who he is,
Sure.
where he fits in. Let's see now. This is information on Michael Byrne. Oh, sorry. That's Michael's letter, actually. See, now I'll show you the photos to see, do you recognize anybody?
It would be hard to know. We see similarities of people.
Well, now that's Michael's daughter.
I see.
Margie was her name.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm just going to lay this here so Lish can see.
And it's written on the back now. I must get my reading glasses.
Okay.
Wow.
Here is written on the back.
And that is Michael's writing.
This is my oldest daughter, Margaret, and her
How
husband
precious.
taken in their
This
own
is Michael's
house.
This is
Let's see.
Michael
taken in May
O'Byrne's family,
1963.
USA.
Sheila, husband and
Look,
family.
Michael
Is
O'Byrne's
that
family,
really there?
USA.
Let's see. No.
No.
But we'll look it up. I'll look it all up.
Yeah.
I'll look it all up. And here's more. Yep. I found my name in Irish. would be Sheila.
Sheila. Oh, really?
Julie, yeah.
Yes, Julie.
Julie would be Sheila.
Taken in May 1963.
See, I'm
Sheila,
learning all
husband, and
these things.
family.
Now, this is Margaret's two boys. This is another generation again down. They would be Michael's grandchildren,
Okay.
Bobby and Richie. Did you ever hear him? He would be Richard, I
No.
suppose? No.
We'll do the
And my
research.
second daughters, three girls, Arlene, Caroline and Kathy. These were taken in, what's that, is that Kay's house?
That's what it looks
Kay's
like.
house out in Long Island where she lives.
You know, my son lives in New York City now.
Is
So
that
this
right?
is very near.
Yeah.
Very near. His little brother.
Yes. Let's see now who this is. This is Ricky, Bobby,
Margaret,
Margie,
two boys.
and
Bobby and Richie, and
Maybe
my
Riddy? Could it be Riddy? Or
second
maybe
daughter,
little
and two
Ritty?
girls, Arlene, Carolyn, and Kathy. Those were taken in
and that
something
is his-
house out in Long
This
Island
is
where she lives.
myself and my wife taken in the house. Michael and Mrs. O'Byrne. Oh my goodness. Lovely.
That was now in
Now I'm very interested in your parents
Mine.
and your grandparents.
right. Well, they were my father was a brother of this Michael's that's there now.
Myself
father
and
was
my wife
Richard
taken in the
Byrne.
house.
Is
Michael
well,
and
that's why they
Mrs.
must call their
Byrne.
son Richard.
Ah,
You see, so my father was a brother of Michael's. And myself and those girls there, they were all first cousins of mine, it seems, and I didn't know about Tracy until the late 50s.
and this is what I told Kelly. See, Kelly and I are working together, really.
Yeah.
And I told Kelly, I said, you know, we're real excited and we're researching the Burns,
Mm.
but it may be that we're also connected by grandmothers.
Yeah.
And we're not even trying that right now.
Yeah.
Like our Cornelius was married to Mary Dowd.
Oh yeah, that's a very Irish name. They live
Yeah.
not far.
Yeah, yeah.
And who is that again?
Uh,
This is Margaret trimming the Christmas tree. That must be again the Margie. You know that.
Margie and
is
Richie.
short,
Right.
for Margaret.
and this is all in the United States.
That's
This
all.
was
That's all his family in America.
in the United States. Sheila and the Kids, 1962. I would have been 1 year old. No, 2. Well, it says February 63, actually.
This is Margaret trimming the
Christmas.
Christmas
Yeah.
tree.
Well, I know how
Cool.
this
Yeah.
works. It's like when they got the roll of film
I know
developed.
developed. I have that as well.
Yeah,
because
so
you
it's
look at
not
the grandchildren.
exactly
Now
correct.
this is I suppose the youngest
Oh,
of them all. This is Bobby. He is an altar boy and serves mass. I'm not.
She has 4 kids. Christmas,
That's
1962.
yeah.
And you never heard of a Bobby O'Byrne or
No.
Robert O'Byrne?
We can look. We can. Oh, look at that. Look at that.
Cute.
My grandfather, his great grandfather. Now again, this is my husband's side.
Yeah,
Was Francis Xavier,
yeah,
but he was known as Frank.
yeah.
And even on the census, it says Frank.
Frank, yes.
If it weren't that I knew his name was Francis, it could be a mix-up.
Yes,
But I see that. Look at the.
that's his last.
That's. It's just.
Oh, there's another one
It's
there.
just lovely to see even the old post.
Mhm.
Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Just. I mean, how the old post. How that would have been done.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was a little girl. I lived out in the country. This is very much like Indiana. That's
Yeah.
where I was born and raised.
Oh, I see.
We were farmers.
We're down in the. What is the
Well,
song?
we were farmers.
Yeah.
And Ryan, on the drive to your home,
Yeah.
said, "This reminds me of Indiana."
Yeah.
It's like,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
It's
now.
very similar.
Yeah.
Very
the-
comforting in a way.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
But
this
when I was a girl, this is how we would do post. You would
Yes.
just say the road.
yes,
There was
I
no
know.
number,
No, there wasn't. No
number or anything
no.
like that.
That's the last one now of his. But this is something. Now this I don't know what to make.
Now is this
That's
is
Michael and Mrs. Byrne.
oh
And she was from County Sligo. She was, it's here anyway. Michael or
Frank.
Joseph O'Byrne. You probably have all this information. that
I
have.
don't.
Well, yeah.
But
Everything.
we're back to Kelly and I are back to the 1850s.
Michael and Mrs. Byrne.
And trying to figure all that out. So
Yeah,
here we
that guy
go.
looks
That's
like an
Michael
O'Byrne.
Joseph Byrne.
That looks like an O'Byrne.
Yeah.
Let me
He
see.
had children, spouse, his wife was
Almost looks
Catherine
like my
O'Grady.
grandpa.
This is Michael.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna take.
Did you see Young Dickie
Wow,
yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, this is so cool.
Studley man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take
Yeah.
a picture.
We should have taken pictures of that.
Yeah.
Of his football.
I know.
Take a
His
picture.
footballing days.
Who is this?
Young Dickie. Young Dickie was very handsome.
man.
Well, we can
Very
take-
handsome.
We can take a picture
Oh,
when
you
we go
get
back.
plenty of them, yes.
There, I've got a picture of
I
that.
see now, is this the same again? Now, do you see where the France, somebody else did this, not me. A friend of mine, Thomas Mullany, who was very big into this, and I wish you could meet him. He lives in Boyle. This is Michael, again, when his arrival in New York, age 19.
You must be
1920.
connected.
Have you got that?
I don't.
And you see now where he put in this again, Francis.
Right.
Must be another one that,
See, and that was probably the Frank, right?
that's right.
The same as
So
my
it's another
grandfather.
Francis.
Frank was just the short.
Frank
Yeah.
is short for Francis.
And he was the brother of Michael, it seems.
See, you could get mixed up. Like when I did the Chicago census, when Grandpa was a young boy in the Chicago census, they have him as Frank, but
Yes.
his proper name was Francis
Francis, of
Xavier.
course.
Francis Xavier.
I know, yes.
He's lovely.
Yeah, yeah. But it's strange that you never got any information on, like, on the family, and Michael, you know.
It was my his grandfather, my father-in-law,
No, did you
just
ever see
just thinks this is grand
Yeah.
because he had lost.
What is your grandfather's name?
Francis Ronald O'Byrne, and his dad is Francis Xavier.
Yes.
And
they
then
were-
his father was
Thomas
Thomas, and then his father was George.
and George was,
George's father was Cornelius
and
from
George was
Roscommon.
born right. George
So we
was
should-
born. George was born here
yeah.
and immigrated in
I
like
never heard.
1860s,
Mm-hmm.
like the 1860s after the famine.
Cornelius.
So Grandpa Cornelius and Grandmother Mary lived through the famine, but both of their sons, as far as I can tell, they only had two sons. It's just by chance that you find the additional
Yes, of
children.
course, yeah.
They may have had a daughter. I don't know. I keep looking.
yeah.
But the two sons immigrated probably in the 60s, and then the first I found them were the marriage records in
In
Chicago.
the 60s, in 1860.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, did you ever,
And there's millions of Michaels and Patricks, and it's so confusing.
Yeah, I think, what we found is that Cornelius lived in Mantua.
Correct.
yeah.
That's what we're guessing.
When
Yeah.
the children were baptized.
And going before him is where we were stuck at a Michael,
Michael is up here.
which is such a common name.
Michael, I had found Michael's marriage records, and he was the very north of Roscommon.
Well, we are North Roscommon.
Right.
Yes, yes.
So we could be connected through
Now, what was his wife's name?
Mary. Mary, you're going to have to help me. Mulhavine?
Mulvihill?
Yes. His wife was,
Never heard of it.
and again, though, this would have been
Michael and Mary. This is going
maybe
back pretty far.
1820s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a long time
Yeah,
ago.
it is. Let's see now. Have you heard any of they're now there, Colonel? And,
I'll have to just keep trying.
Yes,
But
see
no.
now, just read that one and see if there's any name there. occurred to you.
The Francis, and again,
But any of those foreign names, as we say here,
Yeah,
like Kramer, is it, or what's that?
McCartney, no, Albuquerque.
Now, she was the last one.
Wow,
She
they
retired.
went very far out west to New Mexico. That's much farther away than Chicago. But
It's just the
what-
surname. Do you see there's Richard O'Brien?
yeah, the Michaels. We
1922.
have Michaels and Francis and Patricks
Mm,
in our line over and over and over again.
yeah.
The last we had a Cornelius would have been Uncle Patrick in Chicago named his son Cornelius.
Mm.
But I haven't gone completely down Uncle Patrick's line. I only have to his children. I don't have to his grandchildren.
Well, of course, we would never have known them. I have to first tell the history of Martin Byrne. He came from Mantua as a steward to big landowners down here. That's how he came around here. But he came from Mantua because the same people owned a lot of land and were landowners up there. And then the rest of his brothers and sisters lived up in Mantua. Like he was the only one that has, sure, at that time it was like going to America to move from Mantua down here to.
But Mantua is just a very small place.
Oh,
right?
that's also a little country place.
Just
like
a-
where- yeah.
But I mean the idea that
And it's full of Burns.
So Martin was from Mantua.
He was. My
And we
grandfather.
know Cornelius, my grandfather Cornelius,
Yes.
also from Mantua.
It'd be interesting now to see.
I mean, there's got to be a connection
There
there.
has. That's Karen, whatever.
Ah, are you kidding me?
I'm just curious, what is the farthest back thing you know about
Well,
the
that's
Byrne
all-
family?
That's as far as I can remember back as my grandfather.
Uh,
That's all I ever heard of, you know, and it's only in recent, when I was going to school with a teacher and she came from Mantua.
mhm.
If I was good, she said, oh, now you're very good. I'll be telling your cousins in Mantua. And if I did something wrong, well, I don't think I'll tell your cousins. So I never knew I had cousins. My father never talked about them. He never mentioned.
Right.
And they're only up the road from us, if you like.
Here's what I want to do so badly, and I'm probably not going to succeed, but I'm going to try.
Mm.
And so I'm going to ask you a question. This is Mary Dowd was married to Cornelius Byrne.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, both of her sons left for America. I so badly want to find their grave and
Yeah.
pay my respects. And I'm guessing they're in Mantua. I don't know for sure. I'm going to guess because their children, it says on the christening records, their children, their address when the children were christened, they lived in Mantua.
Yeah.
If you were going to guess where the cemetery would be,
But you know, I don't know where the cemetery is in Mantua. I don't think it would be. It wouldn't be in Mantua itself. It would be Balnagar, Elfin. You can't. You know, it's that general area. Anyway, if you got to
Right.
Mantua, you'd easily get somebody who get.
well, we found a church. We found a Catholic church that's in Mantua, and there's a cemetery behind it.
Mm.
And the innkeeper where we're staying, Brian, said that I wrote down the directions. He said, well, you go past Easter Snow and you take this left to Mantua, and there's 2 graveyards on either side of the road. And so I was like, well, we could try those. And then I found a place where there's a very old church on the other side of Roscommon, and it's been there since the 1600s.
Mm.
Now you might have insight on this, and I thought, I wonder if the tradition would they be buried in their village, or would they go to the big church? And here's the real kicker. It's like all of our O'Byrnes, they live all over.
Well,
Like-
you know,
like-
actually,
They all go back to Chicago to be buried.
we were never O'Byrne.
was
Michael only
Byrne.
called himself Byrne.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I know that.
And that would be on the headstones or where you'd be
Mm.
looking up
Can't
for.
be. There's
Right.
no O.
And I know that.
I've noticed that it's printed like
Yes.
And I know that. I think it was the thing after the planters and the
Could
troubles
be, yes.
that
It is
that
nice.
that the children who came to the United States
Yeah.
were Irish,
Yeah.
and it's O'Byrne.
Yes.
Yeah, I really
Possibly,
believe that
yes,
might be it.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, like even his grandfather, my father-in-law, they've lived in Indiana many years.
I see.
I don't know, 40 years, 40 years at least.
Mm.
And now they've lived in Florida 20 years.
Mm.
But I just know that they're going to be buried at All Saints Cemetery
Yes.
in Chicago
That's the tradition.
with the parents and
Well,
the
this is the same
grandparents.
here too.
And
So
that's
that's it. Yeah,
You're
that's what we're
always-
asking. Is the tradition of being
It is
buried
with your parents.
parents?
That's right.
So that's how we should look for a cemetery.
I'm trying to figure that out,
Yeah.
and I don't know
Yeah.
what to do. Do I go to the church? Do I go to this big church? There's a big church near the river on the east side of Roscommon. A big, it's been around since the 1600s.
Yeah.
Has a huge cemetery, and so I'm thinking maybe.
Yeah.
But I know they lived in the little village of Montreux,
Yes.
so I don't know.
No, there are two. I was never in that place. I was at Mass in Mantua, but I don't think I've ever been to the graveyard. But it's around Mantua Church. That is the only way to,
That'd be your best
and
guess.
if you just knocked on the door and said where it is,
That's a good idea.
That's what you do, and you'd be very welcome to do that. They would.
Nice.
Because there's always somebody coming back looking for further.
You know, that's the one thing. Boy, I can really see it too in our family, and just there's much I've learned about the history of Ireland since I've been here that you don't know, that you don't learn in the United States.
Yeah.
And
That's the obituary of Karen Duckett. Michael's daughter.
The saving and preserving the heritage
Yeah.
is really a big deal.
Now, can you read that?
I can.
Their names there are the grandchildren. That would be grandchildren of hers now, which is a
Let me get in.
Caroline, Renee and husband. Karen McCartney.
Okay, got it.
She helped one.
And again, here's Frances. Here's Frances.
Now,
Another
who was
Frances.
Frances then? Who was
This
it to
is-
her?
This is another Frances born in 1923.
Yeah.
See, that makes me think again. We're recycling the name Frances in the same family.
You never heard of Howard Duckert, did you?
Don't have a Howard. O'Grady sounds familiar for sure.
No, Grady would have been Michael's wife, so I don't know anything
Right.
at all about them. I asked one man, he's called something O'Grady, and I met him one and I said, did you ever have any one of your family married to a Byrne or O'Byrne? And he said, not that I ever heard of.
Oh,
Well, see,
So-
that's like my father-in-law's middle name is Ronald, and that's American, isn't it?
Yes,
It would never
no,
been.
I don't think it would.
Yeah.
No, if you look at them.
So that sets him apart from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But his children, except for Bradley's very American. The other children were all Irish names. Well, I think Stephen.
Yeah, well, that's very Irish. There was a Stephen.
So we have
Mm-hmm.
my son has an Uncle Stephen, an Uncle Michael, and an Uncle Patrick.
Yes.
The only one that's not is Bradley, is very American.
Well, my brother Cole works in Manhattan right now,
Yeah.
and our whole lives we never met any other O'Byrnes who weren't our family.
It's very
Right? It's an
unique.
obscure name in
O'Byrne,
the United States, and
Yes.
people even get me confused as an
Yeah.
O'Brien, and
Yes,
it's not
they
the
do.
same name.
Yes, in England they call it Bernie.
But
Bernie.
yeah,
Oh.
and yeah,
You
I've
can
been
always
called-
tell when
I've been-
tell when someone rings and they
Mom.
don't know you, they
That's
mess it
right.
up.
They do.
Yeah, but Cole he works at this restaurant in Manhattan, and he's like the host. What's his title?
Maitre d'. The maitre d'.
The maitre d',
Yeah.
and he's very busy all the time. But
Yes.
but some of the staff came up to him one day and they were like, "Somebody with the same surname is at the door coming into the restaurant. Would you like to meet them?"
Yeah.
And he just drops everything and he's like, "Yeah, I want to meet who this person is." And he goes, and it's a Stephen O'Byrne, spelled PH though, not V. Like the Stevens in our family are V.
Yeah.
But it's like, what's your name? My name's Stephen O'Byrne. And
Yeah.
both my brother and this guy are like in disbelief. Like, wow, I
Yeah,
never met
I
any
know.
other O'Byrnes.
Yes.
Cole was like, where are you from? And he's like, Illinois.
Yeah.
And my dad's family was from Chicago,
Well,
Illinois.
You know, the only
So-
thing that we have Rosemary. Well,
Yeah.
she's on Frank.
Would it be funny if he were from Uncle Patrick's line?
We realized, we've got to be related to this guy somehow. Like all these roots kind
Right.
of share some
you see-
common origin.
Wait, what?
Yes, and you see, I'm Byrne, and I married Byrne, so that's why. I mean, lots of my husband's.
Oh, you have
people.
both sides.
I have both sides. So lots of my husband's family have come home, including this Rosemary who comes from Illinois. But the strange thing was, her father was Byrne, of course, her grandfather, and they emigrated. And when they arrived, they put down their name as Burns, and it could be quite accidentally, like they was asked at customs, what's your name, Byrne, and somebody put on Burns,
Right.
and she calls herself Rosemary Burns, but actually she's Byrne.
A Byrne.
Correctly.
No O's.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you now about Michael. We had a relation living here. She was from Mooring, Leighton. And she was, again, on my grandmother's side. But she came home and she lived around here for a good while. But I asked her about Uncle Michael. Would she look up Michael O'Byrne? So she tried to look up Michael O'Byrne. And I gave her the address, 2021 Coyle Street. I'll always remember it. I used to write to him. And when she got as far as that, they said they never heard of an O'Byrne living there. But you see, it was Byrne she should have been looking for, that would have been registered properly.
Right.
And what it was
Now help me understand this correctly. Your grandfather was Martin.
Martin, yeah.
And Seamus, Kelly's father,
Yes, my first cousin.
his grandfather,
Was
Martin.
Martin as well.
And that's
See, they
the
were all brothers. My father was Richard. Seamus's father, Kells, was James Joseph. Their brother was Michael Joseph. They had a sister, Josephine Travers.
Now, all of this is the real important stuff, you all. So get this very well. All of this. Say this again. So,
No,
so your grandfather was Martin.
Martin and his family then.
And then say his family, and then say Seamus's family.
Well, Seamus's father was a brother of my father's, of Richard. In this family of Martin Burns, there was Richard, I don't know what order they came, Richard, James Joseph, Michael Joseph, Josephine, and then there was a Delia that we never heard of, and so you came across.
I found
Adelia.
her! I found
Now
her!
tell me about her.
Oh my gosh! Okay. This was just luck.
Yeah.
Much of this is luck.
Yeah.
You just happenstance on things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Delia, the good luck with Delia is you had her middle name. Was it Delia Agnes or Delia?
She was, wait, let's see now. I'll get it in a minute where she was christened. She's Catherine O'Byrne. Let's see.
This was the good luck. Was I had her first name and her middle name.
Yeah.
So when I went to do my research, I could use both names.
Yes.
And sure enough, she came up. And she landed in New York. And what I found was her marriage records in New York had her parents.
Oh.
So her father was Martin,
He
correct?
was, yes.
Yes. So I typed in.
She'd be my aunt.
Right.
Yeah.
So I typed in her first and second name
Mm.
and Byrne,
Yeah.
and found the Delia in New York and who she married.
Yeah.
And on the marriage records had Martin Byrne,
Imagine that.
Roscommon. And I typed Kelly right away. Is this the right person?
Mm.
She said you found her.
Yeah.
That's how we did it.
Yeah.
And so again, in the big cities like New York and Chicago, the records are very, very good.
Yes.
So and then how I was doing my research was I have access to the United States records.
Mm.
And then I paid the Irish Roman Catholic Church, I paid them to access their records.
Mm.
So how I did that then is I would get this much from the United States. I would get like a marriage certificate with the father's name and the mother's name. And then I would go over here to the Irish records, which I paid to use, and I would look that up. And if I would find Roscommon, and I would be like, this has to be the right family.
Yeah.
And that's how I found her.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if, surely she wrote her parents, don't you think?
To Martin, well, you see, I never knew my grandfather. He was dead. My grandfather was married twice, by the way. He was married first and he had 2 children.
Right.
And he was married to, again, a girl from Mantua.
Okay.
She was Bridget Kelly. It'll tell us here now when we get this far.
Here, should we put this?
Yeah, she's supposed to
Oh, put it over here.
That's about Howard Duck.
So this is what happened. So
This is
this would have
Delia.
been your Delia was
Yeah.
your cousin or your
My
aunt?
aunt,
Your
my
aunt?
another, she was another sister of Seamus's father, of Jim Joseph,
Oh,
and a sister of Michael's.
oh my.
But when I was writing to Michael, I asked him, I often heard that I had an Aunt Delia and that she went to America and nobody heard from her afterwards. And he sent me her address. And I can't remember what it was, but I know it was a box number. And he said to me, you can write to her, but I doubt if she will ever reply. And she never did.
Do you know why?
I don't know why. And well, you know, at that time my father never talked about English or any of the family. But then Marley told me that you found Adela Cleary or O'Leary.
Don't remember. I'll have to look at the
Yeah, well,
records.
do
when I
now
get home.
because when I was very young and we got a composition, you call it when they say now you got a composition at school to do, and somebody said, that time we never knew we had any relatives in America, and America was someplace we didn't know anything about.
Sure.
So anyway, and this Josephine Travers, now my father's sister, said, well, write to a cousin, Charlotte Cleary in America. I'm sure this was
It's her
the
child.
loveliest name.
It was her child.
Imagine, never knew that from that day to this.
It was her
I
child.
never thought of that.
It was her daughter.
And what became of her?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I could do more research.
Yes. And if, I thought that was a made up name. I thought my aunt only made that up for me when I couldn't think of any nice name to put down.
I remember.
What was I
Yeah, she. I think she had 2 children. I found the 2 children from
Well,
that marriage. But again, it was I couldn't find any death records. So I don't know if she died in New York. I did find the same name in Massachusetts.
yes.
The same exact name in Massachusetts, a death record there, which is very close actually. That's where Lish lives.
Yes.
Lish was born and raised in Massachusetts.
Yes.
It's only how many hours from New York City?
4 hours by car.
It's like 4 hours by
Oh, yeah.
car. So it's very near.
Very near.
Now, I could, again, you wonder,
Yeah.
again, New York City is a very busy, noisy place.
Mm.
As a mature woman, maybe a widow even, it would have been a much more peaceful place
Yes.
in those days to
Mm.
leave
Mm.
New York City and move to Massachusetts. And in those days, it would have been more economical as well.
Yeah.
I mean, just like today,
Mm.
New York is very expensive. I'm sure it was very expensive then
Yes.
because you had to bring all the produce
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
In those days, where I found her in Massachusetts would have been farmland.
Mm.
So I could see, as a mature woman, even maybe a widow,
Mm.
that it would have been more economical
Yeah.
and peaceful place
Yes.
to pass
Mm. Mm.
in Massachusetts. But there's no way for me to know for sure.
No. And now well, I think most of the Burns would have, and Melanies, they went to New York.
Mhm.
It's strange that Frank's family, also Burns, went to Chicago. There's one street full of them. They all immigrated. There's something like 10 of them in the family.
Do you want to hear a tale, a family tale
Yeah.
of ours? And I still have to prove it.
Yeah.
But there's something too. There's always you find little errors in the tales,
Yes.
but often you find a good path.
Yeah.
And I am here
And
because
the Irish are good for a good story.
here's the story. The story was that we had an uncle that lived next to the O'Learys. The O'Learys, that Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked the lantern over and caused the Great Chicago Fire. Do you remember that tale?
No.
I believe it was like in the I don't know what year. I'm not even gonna say.
No.
But this was long time ago.
Yes.
Generations ago for us.
Mhm.
So the tale was that we had an uncle who lived next to the O'Learys, and they had a child named Mary the night of the Chicago fire.
Yes.
Well, my father-in-law always believed it was his uncle. Well, I've already found that's not quite true.
No.
But it probably was his grandchild. Because now I know his sons' names. And so that's my mission when I get home. Because my father-in-law, also 85, my father-in-law is like, I want to find out about Mary.
Yes.
Because they used to write this article about Mary, who was born next to the in this big Chicago Tribune, which was a huge newspaper all over Chicago. So he wants me to find out who Mary was.
Yes.
But that's a tale. That would be a tale.
Oh, that would be a story. That would be an Irishman's story. When you get a pint taken.
Exactly.
But that's a good one for you to share.
But she left off saying there was a Frank that moved to Chicago. You earlier.
Our
I'm
Frank
curious.
was born in Chicago.
This is but that a Frank who moved to Chicago.
Yeah, it could be.
Do we need a picture of that? Because
No, I was just curious about where that story goes. Did that story? Yeah, I don't know if you finished.
Yeah.
Your story about Frank who moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
Frank's family also went to Chicago, and they were Burns as well.
Do you know much about their family? His
Well,
wife.
about their, I know a lot about their family. I think. Well, I haven't it down on paper now, but Thomas Mullally, this man I told you, I wish you were around to get him. He's very good. I might be able to get that. Here, look at what's that?
Francis O'Byrne.
Yeah.
Another Francis O'Byrne.
See, this is
Let's see.
interesting to me.
They were in New York, so, and they were very courageous. And
Yeah.
They were very courageous because,
And that's
Well-
where she came from, Catherine O'Grady, Michael's wife.
and Boyle is County Roscommon as well.
Well,
Correct?
it's County Sligo when you cross the Curlew.
Just
Sligo,
very
past the
there.
town, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to take a picture of this? I'll take a picture because I'm doing.
Mm.
You can also take a picture, but we're very, like Kelly and I are very sensitive about how these families intersect because we're cousins or aunts and uncles or something. We haven't quite figured it out exactly. Let me get this in the sun. There we go. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there you are, Margaret Kate Dowd.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's the Dowd. That's
Do
somebody
you want to
that's
see
connected
this
with-
one as well? Okay, this is. Oh, there's Martin and Michael and Bridget. Bridget was the lost.
Delia.
Was the one
Yes.
one I found.
Yes, yeah.
Ah.
And I have a cousin, now Josie Travers, we call her, Delia's sister. She has a daughter called Bridget, but they always called her Delia.
Right.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's what happens in Ireland.
So you're the Michael
I'm Mary, but
Joseph.
they call me baby.
Really? Do
No,
you
but I've gone back again to Mary. I'm too old for that.
baby?
But
If
every-
we find, see, we need to find a christening record or a marriage record. We have the marriage record. Doesn't say anything. Well, see, they just haven't filled it all in.
Yes, that's it, yeah.
So if I went to the parish, I could see the paper record. It would be
Yeah.
filled in. So if we find that our Michael, you have Martin Byrne.
That's his grandfather.
If we find our Mike, see, so Martin's father, oh my goodness gracious.
I know it gets so.
Oh my goodness gracious. Your Martin, that's your grandfather.
Yeah.
Your great grandfather was Michael.
Michael.
And you don't have a death record on that.
Well,
Our Michael should be that.
Yes, I see.
We could have the same Michael.
Yeah. Oh, yes. You know,
Right.
That's all.
We could have the same Michael O'Byrne, and then you may have just told me that we don't know yet. I have to do more work, but what if your Michael is our Michael,
Yeah,
and you just told me Martin was his father?
that's right. Yeah,
My heart!
yeah, that's the Michael there now.
The
Oh
trick,
my
the trick
goodness.
is finding out about the Michael.
But
And
his-
getting past.
But
getting
he's
past
the
that.
right, he's about the right age though. See, he was born in 1816,
Well,
which is about the right age
Let's
to
see
be
now.
the father of Cornelius and Patrick.
Yes.
See, I'm trying to determine which Michael was the father of Cornelius and Patrick. And I'm probably gonna have to go to the church.
So are we asking about her great grandpa or great great grandpa?
Well, she couldn't remember past Martin, but this just tells me past Martin is Michael. Past Michael is Martin again. So her great grandfather was Michael. Her great great grandfather was Martin. So her grandfather was named for her great great grandfather. And I'm taking a picture of
Well,
this.
wait a minute. Let's see. I might
Plus
have some
her-
more information.
And she has
That
Sure.
special side I'll show it to you.
And
Please
her
do.
grandmother's her grandmother's side were Mulaney's and Morris. And see, we're not even
Now, look.
we haven't done any research on the mother's side.
Sorry.
We
once-
could be cross
Now,
there.
I told you my grandfather was married twice,
Yes.
and he had
There's
two
Bridget.
children, Annie Byrne and Mary Jane Byrne.
Yes, yes.
Annie was married, and she married the Byrne as well. She married no Byrne. But
Yeah.
anyway, just read that. I cut that out, and I never
Sure.
did anything about it. That kept in our paper, in our local paper.
Okay. This
And
looks
we did
like not long ago in 2017.
Yeah, yeah.
This was in 2017. Wow, is this a probate
It
citation?
is.
So that was they were trying to resolve the
well, I don't
will.
know what it was about. Well, I just we get the Herald every week, and I saw that and I cut it out. No, I did nothing about it. But look at the names.
Right.
Look at the names.
To Mary Ellen Byrne, Bridget Byrne, aka Delia, that's who I found. Anne Byrne, aka
That'll be Annie in Strokestown. They called her Annie. Her name is
Annie, and James Francis Byrne. There's Francis
I don't
again.
know where
Which
that
they
was again.
recycle these names.
Yeah.
Whose whereabouts are unknown, if living, and if they be dead and died before October 9, 2016. Then their issue, if any, whose identities and whereabouts are unknown, if they be dead and died subsequent to October 9, 2016. Then to their executors, administrators, next of kin, distributees, heirs at law, legatees, I don't know these words, devicees, assignees, creditors, and successors. This is probate. This is a probate will. In interest and all other persons interested in the estate of George B. Bryant, all of whose post office addresses are unknown and cannot be ascertained after due diligence, using a petition having been duly filed by Dennis E. A. Lynch, domiciled at 33 Clinton Avenue, South Nyack, New York. You are hereby cited to show cause before the Surrogates Court, Rockland County, at 1 South Main Street, 2nd floor, New York City, New York, on Tuesday, July 25, 2017 at 9:30 o'clock in the forenoon of that day, while a decree should not be made in the estate of George B. Bryant, aka George B. Bryant Jr., aka George Bryant, lately domiciled at 133 First Avenue, New York, admitting to probate a will dated October 15, 2012, as the will of George B. Bryant, deceased, relating to real and personal property, and directing that letters of the testimony issued to Dennis E. A. Lynch, Honorable Rolf M. Thorsten Surrogate, Eileen Horan, Chief Clerk, dated, attested, and sealed June 6, 2017. Kevin F. Hobbs, Esquire, attorney for petitioner, Kevin F. Hobbs, Law Office, 301 North Main Street, P.O. Box 1213, New York City, New York, 10956. Address of attorney, telephone number 845-634-2752. This citation is served upon you as required by law. You are not required to appear. If you fail to appear, it will be assumed you do not object to the relief requested. You have a right to have an attorney appear for you. P-5-9/96.
No,
So
I'll
this
just
was
get
the
that
last will and testament.
of whoever he was.
Correct. I'm gonna take just for kicks and grins. Yeah.
Wait, who brought that?
This.
That's yours?
Yes, that's in 2017. And you know, when I looked at the names, it just hit me. This is very like our family. Now, I didn't write to him, needless to say, had I been left a huge inheritance or half of New York or wherever. Because my husband, Frank, was very ill at that time and had an awful things on my mind and nothing. But I just cut it out anyway. I said, someday somebody will be, you know, maybe look at it
Interested.
and reading it, and there you were reading it now. And I don't think anybody ever thought that's 2017 out since.
I am just very interested to know if we find a Martin
Yeah,
in our line,
yeah.
because we're stuck at a Michael.
Mm,
Kelly and I both are stuck at a Michael
yeah.
about this year. Now again, there are a
I think,
million
yeah.
Michaels,
Yeah.
so it could be a different Michael.
I
You
see,
just-
I have another book here. There's a man who comes to Dickie's. His name is Cyril, and he comes from Mantua. And like that, I asked him one time about the Byrne family. Now, he knew a little bit about them, but, you know, I never pursued it. But he gave me the book of the register. I'll show you now.
I remember
I'm in the
Cyril.
way.
I saw him in the pictures last night when we were
Did
at
you,
Dickie's.
Cyril?
Yeah,
Yes,
he
yes.
sings and he's a
He does.
larger, tall man.
He's lovely. He's a lovely
yeah,
fellow.
yeah.
So Hannah, isn't it strange? He gave me this book that I have now. He gave it to me years ago, and just when I was tidying out one day last week or looking for something, I came across the book, and I was so annoyed with myself. I said, "This is very special to Cyril. What will he think of me for not returning his book?" And I phoned him, and I said, "The next time you're passing, Cyril, drop in, and I have your book ready."
Oh.
Just out of curiosity, is this a peat fire or
It is
coal?
peat, yeah. There's a bit of coal and
See, that's
base is
very
peat.
interesting to me.
Is it
We
really?
don't have peat.
Well, listen, if you not smell the peat when you come home, when our children come from Australia, my son especially, when he pulls up there, oh, I can smell the turf. That's what we
I
call it,
can't
turf.
smell anything. Well, this very well could be your grandfather.
Yes.
And I'm going to send them the marriage record I have, and I'm going to
Yes.
send them the christening record I have,
Yeah.
and they're going to know.
Yeah. Now that's Mantua Church.
Oh.
Mantua National School.
Let me
I
take a
suppose that's
pic. Let me
where the-
take a photo. Oh, I want to take a photo.
But it's just all records now, so
Here,
I'll show
my
you
phone
that.
is. I gotta wake my phone up. It goes to sleep.
1822 to 1997.
Do you realize? Michael, we could just be like this.
Yes,
With
that's
Michael.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
Right now, see, we'll put these aside for the moment.
Yeah. Do you have this in a particular order?
I just put
Should we
it.
keep
I
this
had,
all
and
together?
I'll get it settled again.
Yeah.
Just leave that there now, because I want to show you that letter that I got from Michael Byrne,
Okay.
that who needs to write about. Now here in this book, now there's a. See, wait, now I'll take this away. Well, I leave that to you to mind.
Mm.
I have rheumatism in my hands, and I find it hard to grip anything that's very.
See, it was just by chance. Everything has been by chance. I wrote to Kelly.
Mm.
Kelly,
I didn't know you.
Mari's Kelly.
Yes, recently.
Well, Ryan met her on the internet
Oh, right. That's
when
how
he
you
was
met.
in college.
Oh, I see.
He's 32 now. This
Yeah.
was 12, 15 years ago.
No, this was 10 years ago, less.
Yeah.
So-
But
long time.
you know, online it was becoming possible to find your people with your surname,
Yes.
and to me that was a kind of a profound
A
thing. I never
mystery.
met any other
No.
O'Byrnes,
No.
and I looked on there and I'm like, well, here's some O'Byrnes in
Yeah.
Ireland, and
Sorry now, Ryan.
Yeah.
Did somebody get in touch with Jerry O'Byrne?
No.
I thought Kelly said something about him. Well, now we call them the Strokestown Byrnes. That was my grandfather's first wife's children, Annie and Mary Jane. And Annie is the grandmother of this Jerry O'Byrne, but I think Kelly must have come across him because she mentioned him.
See, Kelly, I told Kelly, I said, you know, it's going to be, the way I'm going to find anybody is through the church.
That's
And,
right.
and I asked her, I said, what parish do you think it would be? And she said, I think it was Elfin Parish.
Elfin, yeah.
And went right in there, and
Yeah.
there were the records.
Yes.
There they were.
Oh yeah.
On the internet.
On the internet, yes.
The only
That's
thing,
great now.
the only thing that's very, very poor, and it's just they haven't had time to fill
Yes,
it
I
in.
know.
What's
Yeah.
very, very poor is the death records.
Yeah.
Because they'll have the person's name,
Mm.
and they'll say a widow,
Yeah.
but they don't name her husband.
I know.
So
yeah.
you don't know if it's your grandmother or not.
Yes, yes.
And that's what I didn't like about that.
I suppose
Oh my
I see now where
goodness.
this is. But I someplace in this
Oh,
have
look at that.
I have someplace in that's 1904 where we go back to. I have it marked down here. There's an X at it where
Oh,
the
there was
Burns might be. You said what was the earliest burn you could find?
for
What
the
year?
18.
18.
18, so it's back farther.
Yeah.
The other direction.
Is it?
Yeah,
When
yeah,
is
yeah.
it after we start here?
It goes to most.
1907.
Well, I need to go to 18.
Right. But I think it starts here at 18. There we are. There's 18.
Okay,
How
that's still too recent.
it is.
I'm
Oh, that's
looking-
right. 1897. Now, wait, let's see. Now, John Byrne, Mantua Domain. They call them a herd. Now, he would have been one of those. That's 1896. You know,
We
that's
need
the,
to. Let's go
I
back
bet
to
you-
about
I bet-
1840.
yeah.
I don't have it with me.
What?
Cornelius. I don't have his birthday.
Oh my God.
I know. Well, I
Can
have
you
it.
roughly estimate
I have it.
what it would have been?
I have it in my bag. I just
Right
don't
now.
have it on me. I don't
Oh,
think.
sorry, you're right. 18. What is it?
I
In
don't,
in your bag in the car?
Is it
I
in the
don't
car?
have it
You want me to
on.
get it?
Oh, geez, that was a total party foul.
Kind of critical.
Do you have the nasal spray?
Maybe I put it.
Maybe we
If
could
you
just
can
go
get
back.
online. As soon as you get online, I can
Now.
get it all.
There you are. That would be two brothers,
I'm just not gonna do that.
Patrick Byrne and this Martin Byrne.
Right.
That's in, what date is that?
Yeah, that's 1901.
1901.
I'm
yeah.
not back that far though.
Well, that is my grandfather,
I see.
Mantua Domain. That's where he worked. And they
And
all
when it
worked
says
as herds.
herd,
Herd is the same as a steward. They looked after the stock,
Mm-hmm.
ah,
you know, in the big on the farm.
so it's like, there's another Michael, 1875. This is many. Oh, this is
The
precious.
religious building.
This is
You're lucky that Sir didn't call them. I would have
This
given
is
to him.
just precious. There's a 1868 of Martin, but it's still not far enough back.
Yeah.
It's still not far enough back. We're
Abby,
back
do me a
earlier
favor and
than
look for
that.
see if there's a tripod in there.
So I'm
you
that's
know where
the
the tripod is?
difficulty
You put
is
it in.
connecting
I'm connect to that.
connecting that.
No, but if we have the camera, we
I'm
can lean it.
still
You know that?
suspicious
No, just check to see if there's a tripod.
that we're not connected to Martin. Maybe not your grandfather, but maybe your great grandfather.
Yeah.
Your great grandfather Martin. Because your grandfather was named for his grandfather.
Where did
Yeah.
you put it? When
Yeah,
you
that's what they
disconnected
did.
it yesterday?
I mean, people did that long ago. Every
In the car?
son was, no, the first one was always named
It's
after
okay.
the father, and so
Right.
on. It went down. But see now, you never.
That's what I bet you. Do you know? Of
Upside?
course you do. Where is your father buried?
buried in Easter Snow.
Hmm.
The graveyard is just behind Dickie's house. In Easter Snow. Easter
so?
Snow graveyard.
So is
Yesterday.
his father buried there?
Martin is the
So,
same Martin. we
so
talk of
your
Martin.
grandfather?
Was Martin, and he was buried, which I never knew until recently, well, in the past 10 years, that he's buried with his first wife at Shank Hill. That's a graveyard there as well, at just outside Elphin at the crossroads. Did you come that way?
No.
Shank Hill graveyard.
We should write that down.
Do.
We should
I'm
write
just
that.
thinking about
Well, we
that.
have it taped, but I don't have it written
I'm
down.
going to make tea soon. Can we
Anybody
break?
Take a break.
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
Like a break.
Absolutely.
Are you dying?